NATO's shocking plan to deploy 300,000 soldiers to eastern borders. Will Russia back down? Putin's secret visit to Ukraine's war-torn port sends shockwaves amid ICC arrest warrant. Putin's international arrest warrant shocks the world. Could it trigger global split? Why Putin secretly visit Ukraine? NATO strengthens the army on the borders with Russia? Let's answer on these questions in this video. NATO is deliberating on reinforcing the eastern frontiers with Russia by concentrating equipment and a military force of up to 300,000 soldiers, which should deter Russia from expanding the conflict beyond Ukraine. NATO plans to impede Russia from extending the war beyond Ukraine and is contemplating the reinforcement of its eastern borders by deploying up to 300,000 soldiers to the boundary. These measures will require coordination and strenuous efforts from all 30 NATO members to provide soldiers, training facilities, significant amounts of weaponry, equipment, and ammunition. Nonetheless, the news outlet underscores that coordination might be challenging, as several allies are already worried about their insufficient ammunition reserves, which requires both time and money to replenish. NATO military leaders are expected to present updated regional defense plans, as per Politico. The alliance authorities suggest that its borders with Russia should be secured by a force of up to 300,000 troops, the news outlet highlights. The initial echelon of NATO soldiers may consist of approximately 100,000 troops, ready to be deployed within 10 days, which could include soldiers from Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Poland, and Norway. As per Politico, the second echelon of troops will provide support to these soldiers and may be deployed within 10 to 30 days from countries like Germany. Putin visits Mariupol as part of surprise tour of occupied Ukraine. According to state media, President Vladimir Putin made an unexpected trip to the war-torn port of Mariupol, marking the Kremlin leader's initial visit to the Russian-held territories of Ukraine's Donbass region since the commencement of the conflict. The visit followed Putin's excursion to Crimea on Saturday, which was not announced beforehand, to commemorate the 9th anniversary of Russia's annexation of the peninsula from Ukraine. The trip to Mariupol occurred just 2 days after the International Criminal Court, ICC, released an arrest warrant for the Russian leader. Putin has not made any public statements regarding the ICC warrant, but some analysts view this foray into Ukrainian land, which Russia asserts as its own, as an act of resistance. In May, Mariupol was captured following one of the lengthiest and most violent battles of the war. This marked Russia's first significant triumph after its inability to capture Kiev, prompting it to concentrate its efforts on southeastern Ukraine. According to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, Russia's premature bombing of a maternity hospital in the area was considered a war crime. Putin took a working trip to Mariupol via helicopter, as reported by Russian news agencies citing the Kremlin. He journeyed across various districts of the city, pausing and conversing with locals. This is the closest Putin has been to the front lines since the commencement of the year-long conflict. On Friday, the ICC issued an arrest warrant against Putin, alleging the war crime of forcibly expelling hundreds of children from Ukraine, a symbolic action that further isolates the Russian leader. While Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has made several trips to the battlefield to improve the morale of his troops and discuss tactics, Putin has mostly remained inside the Kremlin, overseeing what Russia terms its special military operation in Ukraine. Kiev and its supporters assert that the invasion, now in its 13th month, is an imperialistic land grab that has resulted in the deaths of thousands and the displacement of millions of people in Ukraine. In the Nevsky district of Mariupol, Putin paid a visit to a family in their home, as reported by Russian media. The Russian military constructed the new residential neighborhood, with the first occupants moving in last September. Mariupol had a population of 500,000 people before the war and was home to the Azovstal steel plant, which is among Europe's largest. Kusnelin remarked, "The downtown has suffered significant damage. We intend to complete the reconstruction of the center by the end of this year, at the very least the exterior portion. The center is exceptionally lovely. Russian media broadcasted videos depicting the Russian leader driving a car through an urban area at night, as well as entering what the media claimed was the Philharmonic Hall, which was rebuilt in only 3 months. Donetsk, combined with the Luhansk region, constitutes the majority of Ukraine's industrialized Donbass region, which has been the site of Europe's most massive battle in generations. According to Russian media, Putin also met on Sunday with the top commander of his military operation in Ukraine, including Valery Gerasimov, the chief of the general staff, who is in charge of Moscow's war in Ukraine. Possible geopolitical consequences of ICC's arrest warrant for Putin. The International Criminal Court's issuance of international arrest warrants against Russian President Vladimir Putin and Maria Lvova-Belova, the Russian Commissioner for Children's Rights, could have significant geopolitical consequences. One immediate implication is that Putin's travel to countries that have signed and ratified the Rome Statute could be jeopardized, as these countries may arrest him. However, the chances of Putin being arrested and facing trial at the ICC are slim because Russia does not recognize the ICC's jurisdiction. The timing of the warrant is significant, as it comes a few days ahead of Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit to Moscow, apparently with a proposal to end the Russia-Ukraine war. The expectation in the West is that a psychologically beleaguered Putin, facing the prospect of arrest in a foreign country, would be constrained to agree to Xi's peace proposal. However, the warrant could strengthen Russo-Chinese relations, as China is opposed to sanctions and other punitive actions, just like Russia. If there is a consolidation of the Putin-Xi nexus, Ukraine may lose out, and Xi may give up on his peace offer. Moreover, the warrant could split the Global South into pro-West and anti-West groups, as there is already a complaint in a section of the Global South that the ICC is going after and punishing only leaders of the Global South while turning a blind eye to the human rights violations by the militaries of the US and UK in various countries in the Global South. The ICC has indicted more than 40 individuals, all of them from African countries, out of a total of 31 cases before the court. However, cases have been referred by governments of the Global South also. In addition, alleged criminals from the Global South include Muammar al-Gaddafi of Libya, his son, and brother-in-law. President Omar al-Bashir of Sudan was the first sitting president of a country to be indicted by the ICC, and Kenyan leader Uhuru Kenyatta was investigated for violence that killed more than 1,000 people in the aftermath of Kenya's 2007 presidential election. However, the ICC dropped the charges against Kenyatta in 2014 and those against Ruto in 2016 for lack of cooperation from the Kenyan authorities.